this is my take two on this week's video post. The first one was interrupted by a whining puppy. This week's theme is design and construction, which in my written blogs, I kind of ranted a lot about budget because the reality for us in high school is that we can only do so much spectacle with whatever money we have. And most of us, I'm assuming, don't get funding from our schools. It's fundraised and it's profit from previous shows. And so that only goes so far. So I've talked a little bit in my posts about costuming and props and the fact that you can really do those on a shoestring budget and still make them look really good. I don't want them ever to look poor. And tech, you're kind of bound by what you have in your theater. I don't have a projection system. I don't have a cyclorama. But I do have good sound and I have basic lighting and I rent what I absolutely need. And last year I wanted more color, so I rented some RGB LEDs, some Lico style lights, and I'm buying more lights into my budget as I go. But since I'm such a young program, don't have that capability. It's set that I really want to focus on because I always dream big and have these amazing ideas. But then of course, what do I do if I can't afford the wood or the paint or have the fly gallery or the wing space to have multiple moving parts? When you're doing musical theater, you're looking at so many different settings. It's not just a box set. You're never going to have just a box set in musical theater. So for instance, this year I'm doing Shrek. Shrek has the swamp, it has Duloc, it has Fiona's Tower, it has the Dragon's Keep, it has traveling all through the woods, it has the torture chamber in Farquaad's castle at Duloc, it has the wedding, it has a lot of traveling. I think I got them all. I might have missed one. And so how do you do that when you can't have a lot of moving parts and you don't have a cyclorama? So they talked a lot about ground plans this week, so I thought I'd show you my very basic one. I don't know if you can see that. It's there. So that's my basic ground plan. And I typically come up with that ahead of time and with my student scenic designer. So it's more about the painting because we do a lot of painting rather than building, and I can't afford oodles of styrofoam to carve things so as much as I would want to. And I used to do that all the time when I worked in scenic construction, but that is reality. So I have a stock set that I've developed over quite a few years of large flats. And this year I'm thinking of doing a straight backdrop. And it needs to be a backdrop that can work in all scenes. And then sometimes in lighting, you can kind of block the backdrop a little bit for particular scenes, which I'm definitely doing. And then it's manipulating things in different ways. So I have another set piece that we're creating that turned one way, it's one scene, and turned one way, it's the other scene, but it's not like a triangle flat. It's a whole like structure. So one way it's the tower and one way it's like a bit of a forest. The same with the outhouse. The Shrek's outhouse is a giant outhouse. It's in the swamp. And then one way it's part of the traveling scene in the forest. And then I have another secondary flat that this year is going to have things hung on it. When it's in the swamp, it's going to be unveiled when it's traveling, and it's going to be open and become Duloc. And I find this hard because I've tried to build things with keeping in mind that I want to be able to use it for years to come. So I have stock staircases now and I have stock platforms, and but I'm struggling this year to figure out how to put levels into this set because there's so much traveling. And if I'm doing choreography, having too many platforms makes it very, very difficult. And because we're doing social distance choreography in some of my numbers, because I want them to be able to sing without masks, I'm just struggling to solidify it. So I was really encouraged this week when I heard that developing your design is a process and it can change even after rehearsals have started, because that's kind of where I'm at. So if you have ideas over really good stock pieces that you've built that you can manipulate again and again in your schools, I'd love to hear those. I don't want my set to look the same every year. And so my background is often different angles and different things. And this year I'm going kind of straight because I need the space and as much space on stage as possible to keep people apart. But yeah, ideas on different stock pieces that you've built that work really, really well. And then I'd love to hear ideas on fundraising. I do a lot of fundraising. We were able to pull off a $16,000 show last year and still come out in the profit zone. I don't like little fundraisers. I like big, lots of money at one time fundraisers. But love to hear what other people are doing when it comes to sets and how they are getting around their budgets and fundraising and being creative. And that's kind of what I do. All right. I will see you next week.